field. You will be sharing. They're going to be sharing some next. Some current tips and trends in designing purpose-driven career paths and reshaping the workplace learning to leverage AI and make informed decisions in careers and in decision making there. So, look, before I turn it over to Tammy and Aaron, I want to explain some of the dynamics of how we work the webinar. So obviously you all are muted, and we do though encourage the use of the chat box. So it's there, it's live. Please open it up and use it for networking, make comments, exchange ideas. You want to maybe exchange your information. However, if you have a question for the panelists, use the Q&A feature, because that's the only way it's going to float up to them. Okay, they're only looking for the Q&A, and so if you want a panel question, you need to put it in there, and Pilar Proctor will be feeding those to our panelists. All right. The webinar, as you just heard, is being recorded, and we'll make that available later on today on the Chamber's website. I'm sure somebody will drop the link to it in the chat somewhere. So, these events are made possible through the generosity of our member businesses. And today, our sponsors are South Florida Community Services as our silver sponsor, and our bronze sponsor, Broward International University. We always like to hear from our generous sponsors. So let me bring up our silver sponsor representative, Jerry Mullins, who is the director of the South Florida Community Services. Jerry, it's yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Alfred. Yeah, my name is Jeremy Mullins. I'm with a program called South Florida Community Services. I won't take too much of your time, I promise, as a lot of sponsors tend to do. We are a program fully funded by the Florida Department of Transportation. We're a free service, and we are effective when we are able to partner with companies and agencies like yours to help provide traditional or additional, I should say, transportation options for your employees. We working for the DOT, we're heavily invested in managing traffic and reducing congestion. And one of our strategies is to try to get people into carpools, van pools, onto transit and so forth. So we work very closely with you guys to help enhance your existing program that you may have. You may have a carpool program to get people into carpools. You may help incentivize van pools, or you may give discounted transit passes. So we have resources to help enhance those programs for you. I mean, we could get very technical. We could help you redesign, bring in the civil engineers to help redesign access to your facility or reconfigure your parking lot if needs be. And that's all funded through the DOT. We give away thousands of free transit passes all the time. All you have to do is ask. We have online portals we can set up and let you put your brand on it and to help manage your carpool program, van pool program. You could have challenges, gamification, contests internally to see which department carpools the most and so forth. We will provide the prizes for you. We currently have relationships with hundreds of companies in South Florida, and we have found that working with HR is the most effective way for us to get in there. It's beneficial, obviously, to us to help get cars off the road and manage congestion. But we have found that people, companies who engage in this type of service, seem to get a little more out of the workers, help boost morale, and it helps the workers feel engaged and feel like their employer cares about them. And also for the companies who are doing this, we have a recognition program which is called Best Workplace for Commuters. Companies like Google, Disney, Harvard University have all been recognized, and every year update their renewal process and get recertified because they offer these types of incentives to their workers. So if you're already doing a great job, we want to know about it and make sure you get the recognition you deserve. So that's my spiel for today. If you have any questions or want to reach out to us, I'll put my contact information in the chat. We have a short video we'd like to share with you about some of the programs we offer. And other than that, it's a pleasure to join you today.
3 or more people in the car, use the I-95 express lanes for free. To register, visit carpoolmiami.com.
All South Floridians who carpool, vanpool, or ride transit to work are automatically entitled to free Uber rides home in the event of emergencies, or if you have to work late with no advance notice.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
well, thank you for that. That was very interesting. I had a lot of stuff I didn't know about using the HOV, the speed lanes. That's great information. Hey, let me also, our bronze sponsor is Broward International University. Excuse me, and they provided a video for us to watch. So let me cue that up and share it with you.
We live in a world that is constantly changing, a challenging, complex world that requires us to be better and better. That is why BU University, from its headquarters in Florida, United States, prepares you not only with the necessary knowledge to be a successful professional in the areas of business, education, and technology, but also offers you tools to develop your soft skills, which are the key differentiator sought by companies today. Through our 100% online methodology, based on learning by doing and through the analysis of real and current case studies, you will be able to discover, identify, and lead the path to success. Because we want to accompany you to become the best version of yourself. Broward International University. Be limitless. Be successful. Member of the International Higher Education Network.
Planeta Formación y Universidades.
Wow. Well, thank you to both our sponsors. It's great to have Broward International involved with us. It just shows you what a regional chamber this is. And they're great partners. So listen, I told you about our chair extraordinaire, the wonderful and always energetic and full of life. Someone we're very lucky to have at the helm of our HR Professional Development Committee, Miss Tammy Davidson, Executive Vice President at Right Management. Tammy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you for your kind words, and I'll give you $20 later.
Thank you.
You're always adorable. I want to tell you that I couldn't do this without Aaron Tandy, and I just want to let you know he's the general counsel over at Blucher Brothers Management. But if you don't know, every time you rent an umbrella at the beach, that's Blucher Brothers. So he's one of the finest lawyers I know, and thank you. In Right Management, we are talent solutions, everything from leadership development to outplacement. And if you don't know us, then email me, okay? But I want to take time here to introduce the panel quickly so that we can get to really the meat and potatoes of this event. I want to start in no particular order, but I'll start with ladies first at Yingwei Hong. She's the Vice President of Corporate Management. Listen to what she does for Norwegian. Talent attraction, engagement, development, diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, HR management, employee relations, talent communications, community relations. Wow, I'm surprised that she sleeps. She has got her master's of business administration and Juris Doctor from the University of Miami. All about you, I guess, for Yingwei. She is from the Dominican Republic, and she serves as president of the advisory board for the Florida Diversity Council, and she's been recognized in many, many wonderful awards. So welcome, Yingwei. We have Lloyd Braithwaite. Lloyd, you're going to find a beautiful accent, much more lovelier than I, from Windsor, England. He moved to the United States, and he worked his way up as director of sales and marketing for one of Orlando's premier property management and vacational rental companies that maybe you even have stayed at. He began his career in leadership development. Right now, he is currently the Associate Vice President of Learning and Organizational Development at Jackson Health, where he's responsible for strategy, measurement, development of the system assets, greatest assets, its people. Lloyd is currently on top of a mountain somewhere in Canada, and he's freezing and wants to come home. So there we go. Now we have Aaron Abell. He is the Assistant Director in Talent Management in the Division of Human Resources for Florida International University. He has 17 years of leadership selection and development, as well as talent acquisition. He's been instrumental in championing leadership development and performance management, and he has held various positions: Broward Sheriff's Office, City of New York, and Spherion, and he has his degree in behavioral sciences. Aaron, it's always a great friend. Good to see you. And my esteemed colleague, last but not least, Angie Brainerd. She is the Executive Vice President of our Talent Solutions. She is one of the finest examples of leadership development that I know. Her engagements focus on high potentials, organizational change, talent assessments, surveys, you name it. Talent Solutions, Angie has it. She has been here for many years. She's very young though. She was at Disney before this in the Parks and Operation Manager, where she served as a leadership development subject matter expert for the Disney University. And she has served at thousands and countless of things. And I would like you to all get to know Angie. So with that, Angie, I'm turning this whole panel over to you. You are now in charge.
Thank you, Tammy, for those introductions, and welcome, panel. It's nice to see all of you. I always enjoy our conversations, and so now we get to do it in front of a big audience. So here we go. You know, learning and development is really having a moment right now, and I'm so excited for this because, like many of you, I've been waiting for years to have some spotlight and attention on our practice, and here we are getting lots of that attention. There seems to be a renewed energy fueling a demand and an expectation really from our employees around having learning opportunities. And so I'm very interested and curious to hear about what your experience is in your organizations and what your perspective is around trends in learning and development for 2023. So that's how we'll frame our discussion this morning. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have everyone experience your insights as I have that opportunity myself, and let's just get into it. So as I said, I'm particularly interested in hearing your perspective on learning and development in 2023. And something that I've experienced in the last couple of months for sure is a kind of a gratitude around the ability to gather in person to have learning experiences again. And so, you know, that's a trend that I'm seeing, that maybe we're gravitating back a little bit more to that in-person learning. I'm interested in, you know, what you're experiencing in terms of that, and also just in terms of where your priorities and focus is for learning inside your organization this year. So maybe I'll pick on Ying Wei, since you're upper left corner for me. Would you like to kind of start and comment?
Sure. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, everyone, for the warm introduction. I'm so honored to be here and to be joining all of you. This is a nice lunch opportunity, so hopefully everyone's going to enjoy the time together. I agree with you, Angie. I'm so glad that right now you're in the spotlight for all of the years of work and what your life's work in talent management, talent development, that there's such a, I think, craving for learning for both employees, leaders, and organizations. So I think it's a wonderful time. I agree with you. It's kind of the challenge of being able to meet all of the expectations for everyone. And I would say that is for, and I won't speak for my colleagues, I'll allow them to share here, but I think for the HR professionals or leaders or companies or whatever organization, is just being able to meet those demands with whatever resources or other priorities that you may have, but obviously recognizing the importance and criticality of being able to meet that learning and engagement. And at the same time, just being what is it that you're trying to serve? You can't be all things to all people. And so if you are dealing with a multi-generational workforce, if you're dealing with more hybrid environment, remote office, you have a lot of other complexities that I think are there for you, which have been there in the past couple of years, but continue to be at the forefront for 23. So I think for us, I think we're just trying to focus on that connection piece that you talked about, Angie. I think that craving for being in person or just even having that connection for those that may not have the opportunity to meet virtually, I think that's obviously important. So in some ways back to basics and just being able to prioritize what's important for the team.
Yeah, so I'm seeing lots of head nods from Lloyd. Lloyd, maybe you want to comment a little bit about what's happening in your world related to what Yingwei has shared.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to acknowledge the fact that COVID changed everything. I won't spend a lot of time on it because we do talk about it a lot, but being a healthcare provider certainly means that was a huge challenge for us. We had to evolve to online learning. And what we're noticing now is while we still have the ability to go back to on-site learning, that we're able to leverage online learning in a way that is still engaging, that meets people where they're at. In healthcare, our biggest obstacle to learning and development is time. It's pulling people away from the bedside, away from patient care, and asking them to develop themselves so that they can create a better future for tomorrow, for themselves and for our patients. The challenge with that is it's an investment. You've got to pull them away to be able to do that. So by leveraging technology and meeting them where they are, able to do a micro learning on your phone or to access a white paper that just gives you a little bit of knowledge and tidbits when you need it, not necessarily in a classroom environment, is certainly helping us bridge that gap. That doesn't mean we've taken away any of our in-person core programs, but really leveraging these in the moment pieces of technology to help support people at their time of need. I think we can all relate to, you might go through a delegation class in person, but you don't delegate for 6 months. Then what do you do? And so these micro learnings and additional resources that help people at their time of need is certainly the way that we're going.
Yeah, and Iran, I know that you had a similar shift, being university based, there was a period of time when no one was on campus, right? So forced to be all remote, but then slowly coming back to campus and now back. And so how has that kind of change influenced what learning and development looks like today?
So for us, it's really, there has been a real large demand for being back in person, but we have been able to leverage some of those online tools, similar to the way that Lloyd mentioned. Where we are seeing some of the challenges, and I think these are challenges not just relegated to us in higher ed, but just having the equity between those who are remote and those who are on premise, and figuring out a way to make sure that you are giving the same types of opportunities for people who are working in different modes of operation, especially across the organization. For us, we have people that are police officers all the way through faculty members, administrators. There's so many different types of professions within our one organization. So making sure that we're providing that equity is probably going to be one of our challenges in 2023. And then the other thing that I would say, and again, this is a result of COVID, is all those field promotions and part of the great resignation that many of us have experienced in the workforce. And so you have a lot of new employees and new leaders that require new skills. And so we really need to go back and see what are some of those gaps that we haven't been able to address in the last couple of years.
We've got a couple of questions already that kind of relates to that thought. So I'm going to throw them out there to the panel now. One of the questions is, what initiatives do you have in place to support your female workforce to advance and move up the leadership ladder? I think that's an important question, and something certainly with the DE&I initiatives that's been a part of it. So does anyone have a comment on female leadership elevation?
I'm happy to chime in. We're really proud of our women in leadership representation throughout our organization. And I think we've been very thoughtful about ensuring inclusivity in all of our programs. So I think that's part of it, is that partnership and understanding from both HR and the leaders, and understanding your organization and how you can ensure inclusivity throughout all of your programs. It's not just one track, right? So when you're evaluating your mentorship, we have a mentorship program, we have our Elevate group, which is our women in leadership ERG. So for us, I think it's about really being really thoughtful and ensuring when you're doing your succession planning, right, that you're evaluating your bench and your talent pool, and ensuring inclusivity and evaluating what are the tools that everyone needs, obviously not just the women, but ensuring that you have that at the forefront in all of your development programs. And we've done that quite successfully.
Love that point of view.
Yeah, I'm proud to say that at Jackson, we have women representing leadership at all levels of the organization. In fact, one of our success stories is the CEO of Jackson North was actually born at Jackson and is now running one of our hospitals. But when we look into the learning and development side of things, when I look at our core leadership development programs, the minimum is 85% of those programs, it's women sitting in those seats. And part of that is because of their drive, but it's also because we are looking to have our leadership team be representative of the community, but also the employees that they serve. And so really looking for that balance. But it's really cool to see whenever I'm in an orientation and I look around and I go, this is amazing. It's really exciting stuff.
That's great. That's great to hear. As a, Right Management is a women-owned business, so we're super proud of the female participation in our workforce too, and it comes naturally, right? So just as Yingwei has reflected, it's about providing those experiences for all and giving everyone that stage. So I love those comments. The other question is around coaching, and coaching for development is one of those priorities that I'm seeing have a lift, I guess, in terms of momentum. I'm interested in how coaching is used in your organizations, and what levels maybe are you finding coaching happening, or there been any kind of changes, or just kind of in philosophy of how you deploy coaching?
So I can speak for us in the recent past. It wasn't as something that people would necessarily turn to, but in the last few years, it's been used mostly for executive development, to make sure that some of our executives are properly aligned with the organization, and to make sure that they are successful, especially since the investment that was made in them and is continued to be made in them is pretty high.
Angie, I think you referenced in terms of leveling. So we've seen a shift of, I think, more traditional executive coaching, and seeing it go further down and within the organizations. So I think that's a wonderful trend. And above all, I think people are more open to coaching over the past couple of years, right? But I think there may have been a period of time where coachees or the clients have been concerned about being coached, but I think we're seeing a lot of demand for it coming from the individuals, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, very, very interesting. We do a lot of coaching through Right Management, and something that I have learned through talking with our coaches is that they are experiencing interactions with coachees that are more centered around the leadership challenges of the moment, and kind of that immediacy of, I have a situation that I need to talk through, and I'm really looking for some guidance around, how can I be at my best in terms of my leadership style, which leads me to think about, what are kind of the top challenges or leadership, let's say, capabilities or competencies that you are seeing need for addressing in your organizations now? Are there any sorts of themes that are emerging or commonalities that you're finding in terms of your leadership teams and the skills that they're looking to enhance?
Angie, for us at Jackson, our biggest priority is retention and engagement. Being in healthcare, there's a lot of a game of musical chairs, I would call it, where people are jumping to a different facility, coming back to us, and we're really sharing resources in our local market. But what that means is the responsibility of the leader to engage those teams, to get to really understand what drives those individuals requires a different skill set than merely, the technical abilities of the job. And so it's really humanizing the leadership experience, connecting the dots between where the employee wants to go, what the business needs, and really trying to build that bridge. To me, learning is the greatest catalyst to be able to do that. And so that's really what we've been focusing on, is making sure that not only are we upskilling our leaders in terms of those technical abilities, but really the core skills or the human interpersonal skills along the way as well. We know that the more sticky an employee is with their leader in terms of connection, the old saying, people don't leave organizations, they leave people, or they leave leaders, is true. And so, COVID may have made a slight exception to that, but we're still seeing that the more you're connected with your employees, the more you're able to engage them, the more you're able to influence better outcomes that are aligned with their desires, it creates a better pool, a better environment for engagement and retention.
And are you finding that your interactions with your leaders to their team members to be more natural in this direction, or are your leaders having difficulty with these kinds of, building relationships? I'm interested in your take there.
Yeah, I think it's always great when you can throw some data in there to make it more meaningful, make it more pertinent that it's important we do this. And so, we've recently conducted an employee engagement survey, and being able to look into, the voice of our customers as leaders, which are our employees. What are they saying? What are their needs? And then having a conversation around what they've already told us. It just is a great conversation starter. You go into a room and say, so, hey guys, what do you need? And everyone's like, oh, what do you mean? But the survey is a great starting place to be able to open up that conversation and read between the lines a little bit more. The survey is just a signpost, but really being able to have engaging conversations, whether it's with individuals or groups, is really helping. Where our leaders are in terms of that journey obviously depends, but we provide a lot of training to help get them there, or a coach along the way to help guide them as they navigate these conversations.
Yeah. And so, speaking of engagement, what are the types of activities that you are doing, or what's happening in your organization that you feel like is driving engagement? So I heard mention of survey to kind of diagnose maybe what are some of those drivers of engagement, but beyond that, what seems to be working in terms of keeping people interested in what they're doing? And I'll throw that out to the entire panel to comment on.
So for us, it has been creating a diversity of opportunities. And I think that's one of the things that when we want to allow managers to have that conversation, we want to give them as many tools as they can so they can offer their employees different paths, different avenues to go through. And so for us, it's been expanding what we had, before COVID, mostly online, and what we've been able to expand. Our university has a subscription for LinkedIn Learning, so that helped expand it quite a bit. Our library, and then in addition to that, we developed an in-house online training platform that we could either source outside content or create content internally that's more specific to our organization. And that has helped us, not for our learning and development function, to produce is probably the greatest resource. But what we allowed is for other parts of the organization to produce their own content and to get that out there. And that has helped really enhance our learning and development capabilities and to provide those tools for the managers.
So is participation with these tools mostly voluntary? Do you have requirements, or is it kind of open to participation?
Some are required, mandatory training. I'm assuming for all of us, we have our compliance training that we all have to attend. But some are highly recommended by the specialized area. So for example, we may have our academic advisors have a training that that they're required to attend, or highly recommended that they attend. So it depends on the function. But mostly, for the most part, the majority of training is voluntary. And what we've seen is a huge demand for that.
I love that you're doing that. And I think that's one of the things that we're keenly focused on, is connecting your employees and your stakeholders into kind of the core and the mission of what you do, right? We work for an amazing industry and understanding kind of what will we do in delivering the guest experience. But perhaps you have someone that is doing, one singular role, and they don't understand how maybe that connects to that final destination. And I think doing things like that, where you're even using your internal resources, and it doesn't require a significant lift, where it's just educating each other and creating that community, I think just leads to that purpose-driven work that I think we all want for ourselves and for our teams. And I think that can be done in many ways. So I commend you for doing that. We're hoping to do some more of that. And I think it's just finding those opportunities that is beyond the day-to-day that I think is really critical to that engagement piece.
Of that, to kind of follow the engagement piece, maybe to, this issue of keeping people, but we lose some people too. How do you attract people to your organization? I think certainly having learning opportunities is part of that attractor now. I read a study that said, 8 out of 10 employees expect that there's some sort of training or learning opportunities available to them or provided by the employer. But getting people to come to South Florida and live, you think it would be easy because we have great weather and it's just, great place to be. But, bottom line is the cost of living is pretty high here relative to other places. So what do you do to attract people, or is there anything being done to kind of offset that for the people that you are looking to bring into your organizations?
Yeah, so for us, short term, exactly what you said. I think, long gone has the days of the interview being the employer interviewing the prospective,
Right.
new employee. But really, it's a two-way street. And a lot of those questions that come from employees today, or potential employees, is what can you do for me, right? In terms of development, how can you help me achieve my vision? And so we certainly spend a lot of time trying to understand what their needs are, where they want to go, leveraging things like tuition reimbursement, as well as direct pay for particular jobs. Long term, being in healthcare, obviously we've got a nursing shortage across this country. We partner with local schools, local universities, going right the way down to the high school, early high school schoolers, to understand if you're interested in healthcare, we would love you to start working with us today. Go through schooling, and if you go through schooling, we're going to pay for it, and give you an internship, give you every single step of the way to help get you there. So we know that in 10 years from now, if we didn't do this, there wouldn't be a pool of people for us. And so it's our responsibility to take ownership of our own future. And so it's really cool to see Miami-Dade County students having an opportunity to know that if you want a career in healthcare, not only is it not going to break the bank to get into healthcare, but you've got an employer that's going to help you develop your career once you're in the door as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I have another question that I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer it, but maybe it feeds into, how we're accommodating our training for all, and kind of back to the inclusive idea. And the question is, are you providing accommodations for people with disabilities? And is this still an evolving process? So I have run into a few instances where we are modifying, especially our online learning, for people with visual, challenges, and even some hearing challenges, and there's technology to support that. Have you run into any of those kinds of scenarios, or are you thinking about that in terms of how you are deploying training in your organization?
So at FIU, all our classes are classes that accommodate according to NEA. So and our policy for our students is to accommodate all students. So it's a little bit easier for us to accommodate than perhaps some other private sector organizations that may not have resources. We have a considerable amount of resources allocated for accommodating any sort of disability.
Yeah, very good. I know that it's important. It's something that is in a conversation always. How do we make all of our learning experiences accessible for everyone? And it's one of those technical pieces that we're charged with, taking care of. I want to talk a little bit about keeping on the technology piece. Lloyd, you were speaking to me about the use of AI in learning and development and some exciting things that you're doing there at Jackson Health. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that and how you're using artificial intelligence in the L&D space?
So this is a journey that we're really just starting. I wish I could say we're further along, and even if I were, we would still be behind. I mean, when you look at apps like ChatGPT and the future of learning, in fact, I just did a presentation for our executive team on how to deliver great presentations. And it was amazing that I had already written my outline, and I said, let me just see what ChatGPT has to say about this. So I put in there, write an outline for 1 hour presentation program, and it spat out something that was 10 times better than what I put together. I mean, it considered things that just didn't even come into my mind. And so I think the question is less about, when. It's already here. We're already starting to fall behind with it. And then rather than swimming against the grain, it's really how do we leverage this technology in a way that helps us make more informed decisions? The caveat to that is, like all technology, garbage in, garbage out. Any type of AI is only as good as the inputs that are there. The way that we're really using it is trying to connect where the employee wants to go in terms of their career pathways with learning opportunities. So our LMS has a built-in AI bot that will say, you're a tech today and you want to become a registered nurse. So what do I have to do that? And so we're building those platforms today to help bridge those gaps. We're not there. We're on a journey, but that's certainly the vision. But I'm sure we could really talk about ChatGPT in another way when you think about everything from a term paper all the way to writing a resume. I put in this morning, write a resume for a chief learning officer just to see what would come up. And I was blown away by this technology. So I think crawl, walk, run is a great approach. Be very intentional about why you want to use AI. It's not just, well, it's the fad, it's the common thing, everyone's doing it. It's why do I want to use this? Is there a purpose? And what's the outcome that I'm expecting? And then start small. Start with something like connecting the dots between where the employee wants to go to career pathways. But don't try to do it all at once. We're all still trying to learn this.
Yeah, are you finding support for, just the idea of it as you are having conversations and beginning on your journey, or is there resistance? I'm wondering this kind of human versus machine technology dynamic and how that's working.
For me, it has to be a blend. I mean, if you think about even creating those career pathways, when you define what skills are required for a certain job, a computer can spit something out that's general, based on industry. But to really customize it for your own business, people have to be involved in that. So you can identify those skills, bring people together, leaders together, the people that are actually doing that work, to really sign off on it and say, yes, it's required that on a scale of 4 out of 5, that you need a 4 out of 5 in communication to be a great nurse. Just throwing that out there as an example. But a computer can tell us that, but to validate it, that's where the human piece comes into play. So I don't see there being a time, particularly in healthcare, where AI is really just running the show on autopilot. but really using it, again, like all data, as a signpost to have meaningful conversations and dialogue about the future.
Yeah, super interesting. I do agree that I think there's a balance there. And certainly as we are looking at identifying leaders that have that potential, those that are able to leverage technology to advance the organization are going to be ahead, I think, in the future world of work, whatever that ends up looking like. Yingwei, in our conversations, you were mentioning a high potential program, and it leads me to think about, how do we identify who are those leaders with potential, and then once we do, what do we do with them, and how do we help to support them? So, do you want to speak a little bit about the HYPO program that you have, and maybe what are you focused on with that program, and what does it look like?
Absolutely. And there's, high potential is so broad reaching, and we all have, the entire organization has potential throughout, but we have a Rising Stars program that we've been really, proud that we, kicked off a few years back during the pandemic. And it's up and coming leaders, emerging leaders, and we have focused their development around growth. We've partnered with a HR strategy firm and really focusing on a growth mindset, and additionally focusing on some, I think in our notes too, talking about soft skills or even power skills, right, as they're referred to today, where we put them in cohorts and really working on collaboration, innovation, communication, right? And that way we're focusing on those power skills that we're referring to now, but they really are at the core of our human, leadership needs. And so, Lord, just talking about AI and some of the things that I think we leverage, we still want to kind of maybe leverage off of both, right? So critical thinking, problem solving, that EQ piece. And so what we do is there's self-development where you're working on self-awareness, but at the same time, giving them a lot of other tools where they're working together, figuring out a case study, presenting a Shark Tank presentation to the leadership team, meeting with other areas of the organization so that you learn from each other, and really put them in a position where there's also, again, back to that human connection piece, which I think is so critical. So hopefully, I think where AI and all of these skills all coming together, we're going to have just an incredible workforce and just seeing a lot of innovation moving forward. So I'm very exciting. To me, it's some of the things that I think are, again, back to basics, like Eran was mentioning. You have had, I think, over the past couple of years with the talent market and how it's been, where fast paced, everyone's focusing and moving forward. But at the same time, maybe we haven't given our leaders or our teams the opportunity to step back and being able to grow themselves in order to meet the demands of now and the future. So I'm very hopeful and hopeful to do some more things like that.
Yeah, it certainly is. Back to the opening comment of, this is the moment to really seize that opportunity, and we're seeing lots of excitement around it, which is very, very cool. So, Eran, you were talking to me about how you really serve as that internal consultant in your organization, and people lean on you for, what is the direction that I should be looking to, provide in terms of support, enhancing skill sets. Certainly some of the capabilities that Yingwei just mentioned are things that I've heard you speak of before. Are there other capabilities that you're finding yourself, supporting internally as well?
Sure. So, and I was so glad to hear the Shark Tank, process. It's something that we've used as well. I think anytime you bring people together to solve a business-related problem, the type of innovation and creativity that comes out of it is just unfathomable, right? Anytime you can bring people from, especially for us, when we bring people from across the university together, the conversation is always rich. And I actually have people kind of ask me, when are we doing the panelists, right? The sharks, so to speak. They always ask me, when's the next one? Because they always get excited about it, and the conversation that these spark, regardless of the viability of the idea, are always fantastic. So when I talk to managers and leaders at the university, what I try to establish is first of all, what are they trying to achieve, and how does that align with the organizational goal, our strategic plan, And some of the things that we've tried to incorporate in our different programs is how can we involve business problem solving or address business acumen. So almost every either strategic planning or other type of activity that we do with an intact unit, we always try to have some element of the strategic plan presented. So that kind of serves as the baseline for whatever activity follows. And I think that's been really successful in getting people focused on, when they're doing their own internal discussions on, okay, so how is what we're doing aligned with the rest of the organization? And it helps create more enriching and more creative conversations that really impact the bottom line of the organization.
Yeah, and I've seen that firsthand, even in your emerging leader programs. You have that strategy discussion, and it feels like a big discussion, but it is so interesting to see those high potential leaders really grasp the why behind the what that I'm doing, and I think that's so impactful. And it leads me to one of our final topics that I want to go into, and that is, how do you measure the return on investment or the return on effort for your learning and development programs, particularly if you're tying it to a business strategy problem. It's easier to kind of look at what are the impacts there, but maybe for some of the other activities it's not as easy to measure. It's always been a struggle, right, in our profession. But what are you doing that is maybe successful, or where are you seeing results? And I'll open that to anybody.
Can I throw in another return on investment, return on expectations?
Yeah.
I think having those expectations very clearly defined up front lets you know whether or not you were successful. Return on investment is a little more challenging in learning, because there's a lot that is involved in changes and outcomes. We can take a piece of that pie and say, yes, we contributed toward it. But really, when you're able to return on the expectations that were set out up front, really lets you know you either cleared the bar or you didn't. It makes it a lot easier. What's cool is at Jackson, we're able to have that conversation with our executives. They expect us to be able to have that conversation before we start a new program, before we go into those types of things. So yes, data is important and being able to make those clear, quantifiable measures, but the qualitative part is equally as important and can be a little harder to measure, but that experience is really what makes or break a program anyway. So we really want to leverage both.
Amazing. All right, so we have just a few minutes left, and so I'm going to throw out a big crystal ball question there to all of you, and that is, where is L&D headed? So where are we headed as a profession, as a practice? And what will really revolutionize in your mind in the years to come this idea of learning for professional growth and development? So if you have your crystal ball out, what do you see?
Let's ask ChatGPT.
Right. Let's ask. Wouldn't that be interesting? Can you pull that up and see what it says? Yeah.
I think.
Go ahead.
Maybe sorry, anyway. If we look maybe 5, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, people were talking about blockchain and how that was going to revolutionize the industry. It sort of did in some respect. I think we might see some of that with ChatGPT, but for me, the way it feels now, it feels a little bit like in the early days of YouTube when video exploded. And I think the possibilities are endless. Lloyd just mentioned how he enhanced a presentation for a training in just a few minutes. So really the new skill is going to be, how do you put in data into ChatGPT so you can get that excellent, and how do you evaluate it? Because ChatGPT, if any, I'm sure most of the people on this webinar, I've seen some elements of it. It sounds good, right? It always will sound good because the element is it's trying to predict what the next word is going to be. That's the element of this AI machine. But you would need to have a human evaluating it. So the what do we put in and how do we evaluate it? That's probably going to be our biggest challenge. But the capabilities are endless. I mean, I was just talking to I teach a class on training and development, and we were discussing how ChatGPT is going to help in just creating training, right? So training now, whenever I'm sure when some of you have to create scenarios for training, you have to think about it and could like script out a dialogue now. You just ChatGPT, I need a dialogue, employee manager performance issue. There you go. It's done, and you need to do some minor editing and send to print.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing is, using those technology bits all across the practice to enable, just more time to focus on other things that matter, and maybe that human connection piece and crafting that will be a huge win for future. So yeah, what else do you think will be a part of the future for this? How about, learning and development leadership, like the roles that we play, how will that evolve?
One more quick comment about ChatGPT.
We love it.
It's going to be within the next 6 months to a year. You're going to start seeing this technology embedded in things like Microsoft Word, in Excel. So, today, when we look at leaders that you can pull out a huge data sheet and they can look at it, but can they interpret it? They may not have to anymore because there will be a bot that they can click and it will be able to do that for them. So it's condensing the learning curve. It's making it a lot shorter. But the one thing, and I think both Erin and Yingwei have mentioned, it does take the critical thinking part out of the role. That to me is going to be the biggest barrier over the next 5 years, is how do we leverage this technology without losing that ability to think critically in the moment? And in healthcare, you got to be able to do that. The robot cannot perform heart surgery or know that when something goes wrong, how to respond to it.
Yeah.
Lloyd, I nod my head because I agree with you. I'm very excited of all of the things that ChatGPT and other forms of technology will be able to do for us, to give us the opportunity and space and time perhaps to innovate and do the things that we're not able to do because maybe we are focused on some task-oriented work. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there, or to not have to reinvent the wheel. But I agree with you that the critical thinking, which at times I think you can still see now, even in certain things, with the way we the expectations of things being immediate, right? And that ability to just even spend time and giving people time to problem solve, right? That's part of it. That goes back to basic fundamentals when we were in grade school, right? You're doing things because you're creating and practicing and helping your brain develop. And there's things that the process itself helps you evolve. So I'm very excited about the opportunity, but I agree with you, and just to proceed with caution, but hopefully the technology will give us the time, and then there will be opportunity for learning professionals or those that are delivering learning to find ways where we can maybe focus on those competencies.
Really, really smart comments, and I've enjoyed the discussion panel. I think we're at time, and I would love to continue. I know we could talk probably all day about these things, but I know others probably have things to get to. So with that, I will turn it back to Tammy, I believe, and thank you all for the engaging discussion and your participation. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie.
Did you ever not want anything to end? Okay, I didn't want this to end. I wanted it to keep going because rarely do we have such wonderful experts, and I just want to say a big thank you to Iran, to Yingwei, to Lloyd, and to Angie to give their time to help us understand some of these things. I will tell you that I want you to all save your date for April 19th. HR Insights is live at the Coven Center at FIU. And Iran will give you directions. If you don't know how to get there, it's right off Biscayne. It is going to be the most dynamic HR Insights yet. And we have a lineup that you would not believe. So please, I know the tickets are going to sell out immediately once they get going, and they'll be up at the chamber soon. I'd like to thank both of our sponsors, because without them, you know, we can't put on these things and can't tape and can't make websites and flyers. So thank you so much to Jeremy and the Broward International University. And most of all, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being there with us. Those of you that serve on our committee at the chamber, you are appreciated, and what you do does make a difference. And I know that these three people make a difference in their organizations. They are leaders, and Angie, you make a difference with me every day. So thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. And Aaron Tandy, good luck with all the things that you're doing at Butcher Brothers. Thank you all.